Welcome to Pimpy's Investment Chat, where we keep investment talk simple. And here's your host, Pimpy.
What is going on out there, peeps? Let's get back to Iraq. You know, the last couple of days, we just been waiting to hear the results of the election. Well, not so much the election as much as the candidacy for president. Now, we heard that they're going to do both the president as well as the prime minister in this same session. And so far, they haven't been able to achieve the most important part of this all. The Constitution says by now, they should have already had the president. But as you can plainly see, that has not happened. There are a lot of hurdles out there. You're having a lot of infighting take place, which is not unusual for Iraq. I said this in a video before. For those of you who were bored, when I said it was Maliki who had resigned, but it was actually Mahdi. But I believe Maliki was the finance minister. But yeah, when that whole group of people resigned, we had to get a new prime minister. And that took some time. We were excited to hear about the new prime minister. We heard about one nomination. We're excited. Got denied. Second nomination. We're like, okay. Third nomination. I'm like, okay, I don't know how this works. But, you know, you learn it real quick. And it took a little while before Al-Kadhimi was in office. Not only did we have to wait for the prime minister to turn around, get elected and passed. Again, it ended up being Al-Kadhimi. But then you have to turn around and wait for him to get his cabinet people together and get them passed. So we are definitely a little bit of a ways away from having an actual government in place. But in the meantime, the same players stay where they are. The same budget is being used. It goes month by month, and everything will be according to the last budget ever passed. Whatever money was put aside, everything is the same. Nothing changes. They keep going forward as if this was still part of that same budget year until the budget is passed. Before we keep going on, do me a favor and hit the thumbs up button. And if you are not a subscriber, please do so. Because when you do, it helps out the channel. And I surely do appreciate it. Right now is definitely a great time for you to be buying gold and silver. For a moment, gold had rose above $2,000 an ounce. It was nice to see. We saw silver at 36, came back just a little bit, not unexpected. I still can't imagine the powers that be allowing this to get too out of hand, but who knows? All I knew is that in January, once Basel III was firmly in place, then you would start to see prices go up. But this has taken way longer than I had anticipated. So right now is a good time before prices get so out of hand. It's already premiums are high. Jump on it while you can. It's not going to stay this cheap much longer. And when you go to buy your gold and silver, go check out our friends over there at Money Metals Exchange. The link is down below in the description. If you are a first-time buyer and you spend more than $100, use promo code Pimpy, P-I-M-P-Y, and you'll get a free half ounce of silver. So for the first time in the history of the currency auction, the central bank sells less than $1 million in cash. We're talking about US dollars. There's one of two reasons why this normally happens. One of them is the local people have gained confidence in their own local currency, or the currency has picked up in value, and therefore they don't need the US dollars anymore. Or the demand for US dollars is so high that the banks won't turn any over to be used in auctions. And this one is said the Central Bank of Iraq's cash sales fell on Sunday to less than $1 million compared to a foreign remittance, which rose to more than $112 million. The Central Bank of Iraq usually sells at least $12 million in the currency auction on a daily basis. But a news correspondent stated today that during the auction for buying and selling US dollars, the central bank witnessed a decrease in its dollar sales to reach $112,670,566, covered by the bank at a base exchange rate with the rate of 1,460 dinars per dollar. Compared to last Thursday, when the sales amounted to $137,900,000. The bank sells to banks and mediation companies. Cash decreased significantly to reach $960,000 compared to the sales that went in the form of external remittances, which amounted to $112,710,566. Our correspondent indicated that 17 banks have met requests to enhance balances abroad, and 2 banks have responded to cash requests, in addition to 1 mediation company. So there you go. It doesn't look like the banks are parting with the American dollars. And that usually happens when the bank has more confidence or refuses to give up their US dollars for auctions. To them, the US dollars are more valuable. President Barham Saleh calls for a political and social contract in Iraq. So President Saleh was speaking to a room full of academics. The president stressed the need to begin meeting the national and constitutional entitlements and not to disrupt them, noting that the task of the new parliament and the government that will emerge from it will be grave and hopeful. So when you read it, it's like grave and hopeful. You can't put those two in the same sentence. You can't put those two in the same sentence in that manner. You know what I mean? Something along those lines. As it came after early elections in response to a movement and a broad popular public opinion that acknowledges the impossibilities of continuing the current situation and the importance of correcting tracks and focus on serious reform and fight against corruption. So the corruption is the hard part, you guys. I mean, there are a ton of political figures. Well, just compare them to our country here in the United States. We got a boatload of senators and people in Congress. They're corrupt as all hell. What we're seeing here is happening there. And which the politicians only care about themselves and not the people. So they pass policies and procedures and laws that benefit them and their special interest group and not the citizens. Although they put up a good face in front and they act like they care, but they don't like you. They never did. Okay? So they're running into it and they're starting to see that the corrupt people are having a hard time letting go of all that power. They're putting up some serious hurdles. I'm talking mostly about the coordination framework. Saleh went on and he added the urgent need for a good governance through a new political and social contract is not a luxury, but an imperative necessity imposed by the internal political and economic conditions and the rapid regional and international developments, noting that the formation of this contract is with the participation of the national public opinion with its political, academic, and social activities. Saleh pointed out that Iraq's absence from its pivotal role in the region during the past 4 decades due to internal crisis was reflected in its internal instabilities and withdrawal from the whole region, noting that the efforts made have achieved great development in restoring Iraq to its natural pioneering role in the region. As you are aware, Iraq exports more than 7 million barrels of oil to America in a month. Thank you, Biden. Jack up those gas prices. But great for Iraq, which is what you want. The more money that they get into the kitty, the more they can focus on what matters most, rebuilding their private sector. Today, Sunday, the U.S. Energy Information Administration announced that Iraq's oil exports to America amounted to more than 7 million barrels in the month of February. That's just in the month of February. And the administration said in a table seen by the Economy News that Iraq's exports of 7.224 million barrels of crude oil to America during the month of February at the rate of 258,000 barrels per day, down from January, which Iraq oil exports to America amounted 10,044,000 barrels, at the rate of 324,000 barrels per day. He said that Iraq exports crude oil to America during the first week of February at the rate of 226,000 barrels per day. They said on Friday, the Iraq oil marketing company Sumo announced that the rate of oil exports and revenues last February was the highest in 2 years, which is always nice, at the rate of 3.314 million barrels per day, and an increase of 112,000 barrels per day over last month. He said that the highest financial revenues since 2014 at the amount of $8.54 billion. So this is awesome. This is great. See, this is what's helping Iraq get back on track quicker. The more money they make through oil sales, the better. But the problem is, and the reason why their economy is still weak despite the money that they're making, is because they rely way too much on just this one sector to get the money from. If something happens to the oil, it drops down in value again, it screws Iraq, and they're going to be hurting. They need to start smacking out more jobs and more projects. So here we had the Triple Alliance host meeting in Baghdad. You got the coordination framework trying to make sure that Maliki is part of the government, and Sauter's telling him, yeah, that's not going to happen. But they spoke about this before. Sauter has the ability to go to the opponents and gather them, and they would then take over the largest voting bloc, which is not what the coordination framework wants, but the coordination framework is a bunch of Iranian puppets. But Maliki, he's not just an Iranian puppet, he's also extremely corrupt, and Sauter don't want him back in office. So the Ministry of Finance International Monetary refers to a gradual recovery of the Iraqi economy as a result of the government's reform steps. Now this article's long, so I'll just try to touch on the things that are important. So a member of the International Monetary Fund went on to say that the policies must remain focused on reducing vulnerabilities, supporting economic recovery, and enhancing resilience through broad-based structural reforms. Increased inflation fueled by the rising global commodity prices calls for the strengthening targeted social safety nets to help the most vulnerable while avoiding measures that impair fiscal sustainability and weaken competitiveness. He went on to say the good news is that Iraq's economy is witnessing a gradual recovery, and it is expected that the balance of the public finances and the external current account will shift from a double deficit from 2020 to a double surplus from 2021. At the same time, however, the economic recovery remains fragile, incomplete, and subject to changes. Real non-oil GDP has not yet reached pre-RONA levels, and global inflation presents a new challenge. Public finances are still mainly dependent on oil revenues, which threatens that any reversal in the oil market conditions will easily cause pressure on public finances to be financed again. In other words, the government would have to borrow money. That's not what we want. Accordingly, it would be important for an economic policy to continue to focus on reducing vulnerabilities and on supporting economic recovery without exacerbating domestic inflation. This will help enhance the resilience of the sustainability of the Iraq economy, enabling it to better face future challenges. In addition, diversifying the economy and promoting private sector development are the most important factors for achieving development in Iraq. This is what I was talking about. They can't just rely on oil. This requires to carry out a wide range of reforms, the most important of which are those aimed at enhancing public resources and reducing their dependence on oil, while creating the necessary space to increase much needed spending on the investments and social protection sides, combating corruption and improving the governance and efficiency of the public sector. So what they want to know is, does the fund support maintaining the current exchange rate or returning to what was in order to reduce inflation and help vulnerable groups? Policies aimed at containing inflation and its impact should take into account fragility of the recovery of Iraq and the long-term goals of diversifying the economy and strengthening the private sector. That's really important. That's what I spoke about before in the past. So this article is very long, but it goes on to get into detail about, hey, look, they're on track to do the right thing. Don't start becoming impatient and making bad decisions that will only hurt the economy in the long run in Iraq. What should the monetary policy of Iraq and the Central Bank of Iraq focus on? The main objective of the central bank is to maintain price stability, support growth, and maintain the stability of the financial sector. To achieve this objective, in the short term, the central bank should closely monitor domestic liquidity conditions to contain potential inflation expectations while ensuring that sufficient credit is available to support a gradual recovery path. Continuing to build foreign exchange reserves will also contribute to strengthening and enhancing Iraq's ability to sustainably meet its external obligations. So this article is long, but it just goes back and forth to say, look, they're on the right track, stay on the right track, don't veer, and they'll recover much, much faster than they had anticipated. There's articles that say, look, this rate is locked in for 5 years. The whole reform is going to take up to 5 years. It just depends on how they manage their money, how they manage the government, what they do with the corrupt people, and how fast they get rid of their debts and start to rebuild confidence with the people getting them back to work, paying taxes, the whole 9 yards, doing what's necessary to build up the strength of the Iraqi dinar. Anyways, that's it for now. Hit the thumbs up button if you're not a subscriber. Please do so, because when you do, it helps out the channel, and I surely do appreciate it. And I'll catch you later. I'm out.